Some of my fondest memories extend back to Dune 2000, a time when I would strategically deploy my base, quickly build some much needed pavement, and then focus on...
complete.
Out. Awaiting orders. Standing by.
Unit lost.
Good! You fight like a Harkonnen!
On second thought though, maybe we should start from the beginning. The planet Arrakis, also known as Dune, holds the key to sustaining this mysterious world. There, humans have set up spice harvesting operations within the vast and unforgiving desert landscape.
Ready, Commander.
With this spice resource being the most valuable commodity in the known universe, as it allows for advanced space travel, among other benefits, many interesting factions want to control the spice production on Dune, and acquire enough influence to steer the known universe in their favor.
That is the mission.
Is that why you come to this bloody sandpit?
With all eyes on this mysterious world, a massive conflict now begins.
Ready. As you wish.
We are ready. Orders out.
Atreides out. Yes, sir.
There are no set territories, no rules of engagement.
No rules, huh?
We will accept these odds.
Three main houses now fight for control of Dune, equally unprepared for what is yet to come. Oh yeah, there are sandworms too. The choice of which house will take center stage is always up to you, the player. The Atreides, a well-balanced and generally cooperative house which focuses on building alliances, new sound-based weaponry, and striking air superiority. The Ordos, a very deceptive and notably calculating house with an eye for wealth building through various illegal, stealthy, and experimental means. The Harkonnen, a bloodthirsty and increasingly ruthless house that runs over anyone standing in their way through unmatched destruction and firepower. Additionally, Carino, the Emperor's house with the legendary Sardaukar army, operating from the Golden Pyramid platform stationed on Arrakis. Also, the Fremen.
Oh, charming, charming.
Native to Arrakis, these often hidden warriors living in a survival-based culture are no strangers to this ongoing fight. There are even some other houses at play here.
God bless the House of Ix. They produce these things faster than I can outlaw them.
Organized groups of smugglers and mercenaries have also opted to join the conflict, either by doing their own thing for personal gain, offering aid to a house they think would somehow significantly benefit them, or selling their services to the highest bidder. The bases these side factions controlled were often just staging areas for their operations, while at other times existing as an integral part of an allied house's territorial strategy. As the Ordos would say,
Say nothing.
mercenaries would likely leave after suffering too high of a casualty count. But that doesn't stop them from making this mysterious world and already quite complex war even more colorful.
Unit lost.
Those who navigate the Dune's open desert don't usually like being there, and have to stay aware of any signs of incoming sandworms.
Reporting.
Worm sign.
Getting into a prolonged fight on open sands is almost never a good idea.
Worm sign. Worm attack.
Standing.
Avoid the worms. That is advice.
Best to keep cliff sides close and harder rock land formations even closer. And ideally walk without rhythm so you don't attract the worms. Unless you're driving a really slow tank, in which case you're seriously
Which we will be.
Having the information you need ahead of time is critical. Knowing the best location to set up a base makes for a great start.
Well fought, Commander!
Scouting out the map and revealing incoming attacks and hostile movement is key to keeping your forces alive. And when everything else fades to the side, keeping your spice harvesters from getting eaten up all the time is something one might consider a priority, right after not getting completely blown up.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Stay aware of your surroundings at all times, and you might not end up lying dead on a medical bed.
Now that's why they call it intelligence.
Dune 2000's gameplay often follows a similar path. Set up a base, harvest some spice, build an army, and politely ask anyone not securely allied with you to please leave the planet. This pattern of entering a map and clearing it out to claim victory is what you have to get used to, as there isn't much variation in the way things play out beyond the terrain and faction specifics on most of the missions. Unlike some other RTS titles, Dune is quite comfortable in its standard gameplay loop, and going in expecting a very varied experience might disappoint those of you who are more used to differing unit-centric scenarios, rather than a constant build and overpower approach. Some might consider this one of the game's main weaknesses, and many did back when it was released compared to other games. But while its simplicity sometimes cries for variance, of which a certain amount already does exist, the way the player chooses to experience the game can render such things almost as a benefit, rather than a missed opportunity, as there is definitely beauty in the lack of complexity for those who look at the game as not wishing for what it could have been, but with gratitude for what it is.
For the Duke!
You might also find each playable faction kind of looks and plays the same, but if you take a closer look, you can see slight but very distinct adjustments to favor each side's playstyle, as well as an iconic sense of aesthetics. This can range from how each house decorates and presents its buildable structures and vehicles, to less noticeable combat-related differences. Each side has their own special vehicle type, true to their philosophy, and some additional unique units that fit their way of doing things on the battlefield.
Now, tell me what I want to hear.
Finding out how to best utilize these advantages makes for a much better experience than always thinking about how the shared similarities make houses less unique. Besides, the developers did have to decide how to best balance everything out. Focus on what does feel right, and you'll probably enjoy the game a whole lot more. And if you ask me, one of the better parts of Dune 2000 is how the game interlocks into some other Dune content, such as with the well-known movie adaptations of the Arrakis conflict, to a certain degree. Although it does its own thing, being a somewhat connected game and all, characters and locations you may have seen featured in other Dune media really do show up in the game in their own way. This cross-connectivity is an aspect I find really interesting and love thinking about. If the inspired style and recreated work isn't enough, look closer and you will find bits and pieces of other Dune content in many of the live-action FMV cutscenes. The acting, in classic Westwood style, is everything from to over-the-top cool.
The stains become a warning, and it's by the will alone I set my mind in motion.
The characters are memorable, and they do a great job of pushing you into the world as if you were truly there. Given a chance, you might even grow to like them. Well, sort of, maybe.
Baron! Dinner!
Wouldn't be the same without the dark humor of someone losing a heart plug, eh? And if you find yourself a bit stuck against a house you don't particularly like or enjoy, you can always give the Emperor a call and
Release the Sadukar!
if he hasn't already done something in the background to mess with you. In which case, one of the suicidal Ordos saboteurs might be worth making friends with. The thematic atmosphere of Dune can always be counted on as a high point, as one of the more distinctive aspects of this fictional universe. Not only are the visuals really something to dive into, but the music that accompanies us on this journey as well. Dune 2000 soundtrack follows the game's presentation very memorably, and makes sure that this world really feels like Arrakis, coming from each of the factions' perspectives. From motivating Harkonnen combat themes to the explorational ambience of the desert's uncertainty, the audio will not let you down. This kind of music always makes me very happy and a bit nostalgic, as it connects me back to an earlier Inspirational life, when such games were on the cutting edge of what you could interactively experience. An added bonus is that these memories I hold might relate to family members who I don't have the luxury of playing games with anymore. and things like that. There are many factors to why I love this game, but ultimately, for me personally, it's because it was in the right place, at the right time, with the right amount of amazing and unique content. When presented with a choice, like in the game's house selection for example, you likely already know that the type of community and values you surround yourself with influences who you are and what you become. It'll define you to some extent, for sure, and you can ask if the course you have taken is really for the best, or even experiment with how things would have turned out differently, given another option. But permit those questions to pass over and through you. Learn from the process. Sometimes there is no clear way to what you'd like to achieve, and perhaps the only way you can advance is by being a part of something that you don't fully agree with, and perhaps never will. When confronted with such a truth, what comes next? Learning what makes you who you are and how your thoughts, feelings, and actions impact the world around you is something you have to face either way. And given the game's fantastic portrayal of such a different world, often so disconnected from, but also inspired by ours, exploring the meaning within our lives and what we choose to do with them is unfortunately just a few layers too deep for what many players consider immediately relevant. But with that bit of extra depth and our always growing awareness, combined with the motivating action and enjoyment a memorable game like Dune 2000 can certainly provide, your own personal journey through the world's harsh sands can almost always uncover so much more.